I ate a whole bunch of chili last night, and whew, it's time to vent in here. Actually, the chili has nothing to do with these tires, but it's a good joke, wasn't it? Come on, come on. Yeah. So we're gonna vent our tires, the VXT2s today. As you probably saw last time, I've forgotten my leather punch once again, and I didn't forget it today. I have installed so many sets of tires without venting them, and now it's time to vent. We got to do it. You just got to do it, unless you're going into water. And if you're going into water here, before I actually take this wheel apart, these are non-vented, which means they're air pressurized, and we have these 3D printed inserts from TGH that are in themselves extremely bouncy, and it's for how much weight these are. This is a lot of rebound. You don't want that on the rocks. You want it to be kind of dead, because otherwise, if you've got this sort of, you can actually see the frequency that it wants to bounce right now, and that is like the worst frequency for a 5 to 7 pound crawler, because you'll get into an object and then all your wheels will start to do like this, and you don't get traction if you're in the air the half the time. So moral of the story is we're going to vent these tires, and then we're going to bounce them and see how much less they bounce. It's going to be a lot less. We're still going to have some bounce from these, because the rebound on that is excellent, actually. And maybe you don't want reboundy foams. I don't know. I'm not quite an expert in the wheels and foams. This is not my bag, baby. This is somebody else's bag. I am happy just being a motor guy, because there were lots of chances to do other things. Actually, originally I was, instead of going towards the motor market, I was going to make plate wheels and chassis for competition stuff. And there's maybe just my whatever it's called, Vanquish rig with the carbon fiber chassis. I think that's the only one that I have with carbon fiber, maybe. There may be a few hiding around here somewhere. Oh yeah. We got the Titan from TGH, Titan chassis. But for a long time, there was a huge market for essentially making carbon fiber chassis. And there still is, for competition guys. There still is a pretty big market for that. All right, what size punch are we going to do? Probably this one, whatever size that is. That seems big enough without being too big, because if you go too big, you're going to potentially rip stuff. We don't want to rip stuff. And a lot of times people will vent in multiple places. So yeah, maybe I'll just take this all the way out. Should I vent on one side, another side, maybe 3 sides? I could look at some of my other ones to see what we've done. All right, so leather punch, get back to it. Gotta stay focused here. So you just put it in between a lug, wherever you want to vent at, and a little boop should make a punch. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh, it's so clean. Look at that little hole. You probably can't even see it hardly. It's so good. But we don't want it too big. All right, there's one. Maybe I'll vent on the opposite, just to do it. About right there. About right here. Somewhere in here. Boop. Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, let me know in the comments how you vent. You do 1 hole or 2 holes or 3 holes or 4 holes. You do it in the tread. Not good for getting into water. Although it won't matter with these. With normal foams, they will soak up water and then become really nasty. It causes problems. But we really don't have to worry about that with printed foams. Gnomes. No foams. Foam gnomes. Oh yes, the heater, quotation marks, it's really a heater. Definitely is really a heater. I got to keep talking because it's in the background, churning out that heat, that sweet, sweet subsidized heat. So I can't stop jabbering about stuff. All right, what's next? How about how delicious Red Bull is? I really don't like the flavor anymore. Thanks to having COVID 4 years ago, it ruined my taste buds for just this one beverage, actually. I wish it tasted better, but it's kind of nice to have a little edge with filming. I mean, this is not a lot of times when I feel like I need to be slightly hyped up, but filming, you know, y'all don't want to watch me be like, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We're gonna vent our tires today. It's gonna be fun, I promise. What do you guys like to do with your tires? Maybe I can keep this up for the rest of the video. It kind of reminds me of Eeyore. We're having so much fun today venting tires. Yeah, I can't keep that up. Yeah, so occasionally I will have my Red Bull, usually on filming days. There are other drinks out there that I do actually prefer. There's one that I found recently called Pete's or Petey's, something like that, and it doesn't have a bunch of weird stuff in it like Red Bull. Ugh, I don't even like to read what's in there. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible for you. But the Petey's stuff, Petey's Bing, it doesn't seem to have a lot of weird stuff in it, and it also is pretty low sugar. Like they just don't add a whole bunch of sugar to make it, you know, ultra palatable or whatever. And it still tastes good. It's sweet. It has fruit juice in it for sweetness. You know, maybe they throw some sort of like, you know, a complex sugar in there that doesn't really add to the calories but adds to the sweetness. But maybe y'all have heard of it in the comments. Maybe you haven't heard about it in the comments. Maybe the comments is not the place to find out about PT's Bing energy drinks or whatever they call them. I find it funny that they're called energy drinks because they don't actually give you energy. It's more of like borrowing from the future against the moment of today. But at least with caffeine, you can sleep it off. There's a lot of other ways to borrow against the future energy that you can't just sleep off. I mean, yeah, you give it a couple of years, sure. All right, this is front. This will be front. I'm putting this over here so I remember. I guess we could have done a side-by-side test. Need to switch hands. That's the key to this, is putting everything in the proper hands. Hopefully I don't rip these tires. They're very flexible though. Boop. Bip. Bang. All right. Non-directional. I looked at this last time and I forget. I do believe non-directional. So we're just gonna throw them in. Oh, you know what? I may want the centering ring, aka the lock ring, aka the one ring that rules them all, aka Gollum's favorite, aka you should have put a ring on it. If you liked it, you should have put a lock ring on it.
Not a scrub.
Yeah, we don't want any scrubbing on the knuckles, because that's a good way to make sure your tire has damage. You can tell why I don't do YouTube for a living. There are people that can just jabber and jabber and jabber about nothing while playing a video game at the same time, or watching somebody else play a video game. You can tell that I'm getting old now because I'm starting to despise the things that my children like to watch. And at this point, it's not even gamers playing games, it's people talking about gamers playing games. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. No, and I don't want to get it. And you can tell me in the comments about how you're getting old and crotchety too, and you don't get skibbity toilet or whatever. Hopefully you don't even know what skibbity toilet is. I really hope for everyone's sake that none of us have actually seen it. But I guess that's what kids find funny these days. I like the days of badger, 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 mushroom, mushroom. That's my sort of humor. Back when flash animation was about as fancy as we got. Oh no! Let's see. Any damage? No. Oh well. Alright, we're going to try this again. I was having issues with the bead slipping out a second ago. I'm just going to mumble to myself at this point. Why is it being difficult? Do I need to reverse the order of operations? Fine, we're going to reverse the order of operations. We're going to... That didn't help me at all. Why did I take that other ring out? It was already in. Oh well. It's being difficult for some reason. It's like I've forgotten how to put wheels together. I'm still on the first one here, guys. There, that went in. Just had to look away. I am still on the first one. So you know what we're probably going to do is just not even montage the rest, but I'm going to do one. I'm going to bounce it, and then we'll see you on the rocks in the next video. Because I'm going to put these on my VRD carbon, or whatever the heck it's called. Yeah, VRD carbon. I should know the name of all the vehicles in my fleet, but you know, there's a certain point in life where I realized that my brain can't actually keep everything inside anymore. It's, you know, maybe that's part of getting old. Or maybe it's part of just like, I don't want to say giving up, because it's not giving up, but you know, you can only be what's the old saying? A master of none, something another, master of none.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. There we go. Master of none. But there's actually a full saying. That's not the full saying. It's Jack of all trades, master of none, and then something, something, something else that actually isn't disparaging about being a jack of all trades. I'm going to have to look it up here in a second after we do the bounce test, and we'll end on that note. The reason why I cannot remember everything anymore, I'm going to blame it on the saying. That's what I'm going to do. We have blame to shift.
I had a boss that said, "I'll forgot more than you'll ever know."
Yes, I have forgotten more than you'll ever know, which is either a really smart boss or he's a jackass. Jackass it was, huh? Yeah. I mean, the thing is that you don't just say that to people. Like, sure, you may have learned and unlearned all of that information, and I've seen y'all say in the comments that, yeah, I've probably forgotten more about motors than you'll ever know, and sure, fine, whatever. All right, it's still bouncy, but it's definitely less bouncy, and yeah, we're gonna have some level of bounce with these guys. So, interesting. So the harder ones, obviously not as bouncy. I do wonder. We'll just see how they perform on the rocks. I can see why people would want to do like an outer foam ring combined with something that was 3D printed, because you would get the best of both worlds of, I mean, look at this. That side hilling is going to be intense, insane. Everything that starts with I. But at the same time, in a competitive setting, the bouncing isn't going to be ideal. So if you put a little wrap of foam around the outside, that would actually deaden it. But yeah, these are going to be better than what I'm running, I can tell you that. All right, I'm going to look up what the full saying is for master, jack of all trades, master of none.
Still better than something of one.
Yeah, here we see. Jack of all trades was a compliment in the 14th century. In the 16th century, a jack of all trades is a master of none. It was an insult. And there we go. And in the 21st century, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. I actually don't even know what that means. Yeah, great. Yeah. So maybe it's talking about how some people over specialize potentially, and if you get into over specializing, that you may miss out on a lot of other things. I'll just continue talking about this because now I have some ideas about it while I do this next tire. So I design motors for a living at this point in my life. I am comfortable saying that that is how I make my living, and it is also how other people make their living within this company. What am I doing? But I could have stayed in my lane and stuck to only radio control car stuff, and I would have been much worse off for my knowledge of motors if I did that. I have done work in the e-bike industry for other companies mostly. I never got into that myself for, selling. I built a lot of wheels actually, and the wheels would have hub motors inside. And so, yeah, maybe to a degree, I was still working with motors, and I worked with some motor designers and factories and stuff. Worked with ebikes.ca on theirs. But the information in the e-bike industry, it really wasn't even an industry when I started in it. Same for crawling. When I got into the e-bikes, it was just these dudes putting kits together in their basements pretty much. And then we started learning about the motors and, why do all of these essentially Chinese designed, Chinese made motors suck? They're for the Chinese market. Well, what are we going to change if we want an American market motor? And so we started getting into the flux gap density and the density of your flux in the back iron, both sides of the back iron, the ones behind the magnets and the ones behind your coils. What's the ideal tooth ratio to back iron ratio? All of these little details of motor design that in the radio control industry, nobody talks about. And the only people that would be able to talk about it are the ones that are actually designing motors, and they don't want to talk about it because they're going to be essentially giving away a lot of secrets. I can spend $10,000 on a piece of software that will tell me essentially what the golden ratios are for designing a motor, or I can just be told what they are. There are golden ratios for almost every aspect of an electric motor when we're talking permanent magnet DC or permanent magnet three-phase, however you want to state what we're doing. But nobody's talking about that. And I can have private conversations with like the owner of Tekin or the owners at Castle. Maybe or maybe not, they will divulge some information that they have. I was fortunate enough to get a lot of information from Astroflight before Bob retired, before he lost his faculties. And he, of course, he knew a lot of that information, but he really wasn't in the RC realm. He majority made motors for the military. Astroflight, yeah, sure, they made aircraft motors and they made, RC. Back in the brush day in particular, they made of RC a lot of ground-based type stuff. They were actually a military contractor when it boiled down to it. Their bread and butter was making motors for torpedoes of all things. Not really a very public information, but their motors were designed to die, like every motor, and they knew exactly how long they could heat soak inside of a torpedo. So it's like, all right, this torpedo is going to have 20 minutes completely insulated inside, right? So you don't want any noise getting outside of the torpedo or else it will be detected. And that also means that no heat can get outside of your motor at the same time. So 20 minutes of heat soaking from the time that it's shot until it hits its target. And so it was designed to a T to essentially run with absolutely no cooling at a certain load, a certain speed, and be on the brink of essentially failing from heat soak when it got to it. This is why the Astroflight motors all had cobalt magnets as opposed to neodymium, because you can make a lot stronger motor with neodymium magnets, but guess who has the edge on heat soaking if you can't get any heat out? If there's no heat shedding available, the cobalt based magnet was far superior for the application. And they're not going to have multiple magnets for making motors. You know, you tool up for a certain one, you're kind of stuck with that tooling. And yeah, sure, you can tool up again, but when your one biggest customer is paying for all of this and your radio control side gig is really just a side gig that, I mean, it almost didn't even matter for their original business, now owned by a Japanese company, as a matter of fact. You know, it shapes what you're making. You know, it really does. The industry that you're in shapes what you're making, and also your understanding of things. Bob was really against neodymium magnets, and it's because his view was shaped by the need for extreme heat resistance primarily, and that was it. You know, does it function under all conditions? Yes. Well, that's what Astroflight needs to be, is something that will function under all conditions. It's kind of getting off track here, sorry. But no, that's the point of it, is getting off track. And you know, I've helped with a motor for the one-wheel industry. I've done some UAV style motors for military contractors that I really can't talk about. I've done a lot of motors that are not radio control at all, in the least, and every single one I learned some key aspects of motor design that I would have not have learned if I was sticking just to RC, and in particular just crawling. You know, I could probably learn some stuff by going into the race world, but really what I'd be learning is how to skirt rules in the race world. That's more of where motors, you know, they get their edge by saying, hey, what's our rule set? And where can I bend these rules to get a slight advantage? Such as finding wire where the draw tool is just slightly worn out. So technically, you know, this is still 18 gauge wire, but it's a little bigger than 18 gauge. It's like 17 3/4 gauge when it boils down to it. So, hey, you know, it fits within the standard, but our motors have slightly lower resistance than everybody else's. Or knowing that, you know, we can have a stack that's so many millimeters long, and making sure that we do not have a stack that's longer than that. Just a lot of tricks. It really boils down to tricks when it comes to racing. And if you're in a spec class where you're limited to a certain turn of motor or something like that, it's all a bunch of just little tricks that you're trying to one up other vendors with. And if y'all are into the racing scene, y'all have seen these over the years and seen the motors that get illegalized after they have a season of just stomping the pants off of everybody else because they found, you know, this one little secret that you won't believe. And they used it to their advantage, and then the rules catch up with them the next year, and you know, you start it all over again ad nauseum for racing. That's one reason why I never wanted to get into racing, besides the fact that I don't care for racing, and if I don't care for something, I'm probably not going to do a good job designing it, because I will lose interest very fast. So I've stayed out of that. But jack of all trades, master of none is potentially better than a master of one, whatever it said. I kind of get that now, because if I had stayed in my lane, there's a lot of information that I wouldn't have had. Designing stuff, you know, designing motor housings, it's a very specific set, especially when you're designing for manufacture. It's a very specific set of skills, and designing other shapes it can be totally different. Now, a lot of it, of course, yeah, it crossbreeds with each other, but Yeah, I guess I'll end on that rant of it's done me better to not be so highly specialized that I don't see the forest for the trees, essentially. That I do enjoy kind of stepping outside of the RC realm, and I don't talk about it a whole bunch, although, hey, we're going to be able to shoot a video on that. The next video, I've got a really cool one that I can at least share the motor with, but I can't tell you what we're doing it with because, you know, things. But it's really cool. So, all right. Well, if you have any questions about life in general, I guess this would be a good time to put your comments down below. As always, I do thank you for tuning in. Have a great day. Congratulations, your toilet viewing was successful. Hopefully you're done pooping by now, and if you're not, you should probably wrap it up. If there are any other topics you would like us to cover, leave your comments down below and make sure you're subscribed to the channel as well.